States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first item on our agenda is the consideration of the agenda. You all have that in front of you. Are there any changes that we need to make to the agenda before we continue? All right, I don't hear any. The next item is our consent agenda, and the consent agenda consists of routine matters that typically do not require board discussion. Individual board members may remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion or separate action. On our consent agenda tonight, we will be approving the minutes from our regular meeting held on January 9th, 2023, approve personnel recommendations, accept donations totaling $10,748.25, approve bill vouchers, EP registers, EFT vouchers, and our Capital One expenditures. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The motion carries. The next item on our agenda is our superintendent's report on excellence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a busy last few weeks. Orono students and staff have not missed a beat getting back to school in the swing of things since winter break. And this week marks the end of semester 1 with final exams Wednesday through Friday of this week. And we wanted to wish all of our students the very best on their exams. Orono boys swimming and diving team swam last Saturday at the University of Minnesota at the True Team State Meet. And the team placed 4th out of 12 teams. This is the highest ranking for Orono since the inception of True Team State Meets in 2004. And as you may know, the True Team allows all swimmers to score points for the team, showing the strength of the team as a whole. Coach Ben Hansen recently told his swimmers that this is the most complete team that he's coached, and everyone contributes, from our 7th graders to our seniors. So the next home swim meet is February 2nd at 6 p.m. against Waconia. Secondly, Scholastic Art Awards. I'm very excited to report that 3 students who entered the Minnesota Scholastic Art Awards from Orono High School earned recognition. And congratulations to sophomore Andrew Carlson for earning a Silver Key Award for his digital drawing. Congratulations to senior John DeLong, earned an honorable mention for his painting. Congratulations to senior Amelia Schaefer, who earned a gold key for her painting and an honorable mention for a ceramics piece. All students will be recognized at a reception at the University of Minnesota Weissman Museum. Amelia has also been invited to display her work at the Regis Art Center and other Gold Key Award winners. Congratulations. I also would add a thank you to art teacher Jane Hutchins for her continued inspiring our young artists and encouraging them to participate in these impressive contests. Also, our speech team, last weekend, Orono speech team hosted their 8th annual tournament titled The Odyssey, Your Journey Begins Here. The team hosted 20 schools and nearly 500 speakers. Our Orono varsity speakers did an outstanding job and earned the following recognition. Emily Middleton was the champion in creative expression. Maya Haugen earned 3rd place for storytelling. McKenna Monger earned 3rd place for poetry reading. Adeline Stavinsky earned 5th place for creative expression, and Madeline Dorr earned 5th place for humorous interpretation. Congratulations, we're proud of all of our Orono speech team. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Flesher. The next item on our agenda are board members' questions and comments, and I'd like to start with Ms. Lunsgaard tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it was a busy week for me last week. I had a teacher meet and confer. It was a meeting that was supposed to be in December, but had to be changed. So fortunately, I was able to attend that. Laura and I, along with Christy, attended it. The teachers came with really great ideas. One of the issues they discussed was that they believed there could be improvements made to the open house and curriculum nights to engage parents more effectively and build relationships. So it actually ties really well with our what we're going to be talking about tonight in community engagement. There's going to be a study group formed to gather information from teachers and parents, and they're going to be making recommendations on how to maximize the experiences for everyone. I also had a curriculum and accountability council meeting. And you're going to hear essentially tonight from Dr. Seitner what we heard and discussed at last week's meeting. Finally, Todd and I attended the MSBA Leadership Conference last week, where we completed phases 1 and 2 of the Learning to Lead workshop series. School board basics were covered. We learned about school finance and management, and it was really a great experience. We were able to connect with several other new school board members, so that was really nice. I also was really fortunate to hear Dr. Adolph Brown's inspiring keynote speech, Reflective Leaders Are Effective Leaders. I attended several roundtable sessions, and I attended the district discussion, and I voted. And for your information, Milind Sahoni, pardon me if I have mispronounced his name, but he was elected for District 4. And
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, mine's out too. Well, I attended an Orono Early Learning Parent Group meeting at the Discovery Center. They're continuing to plan for their Super Saturday, which is going to be on February 4th from 9 until 11, and that will be the kickoff of their book fair out there. And also, I just wanted to mention that they have been working with the Activity Center and Community Ed to get some very nice toddler times. So they have an hour of toddler time at the Activity Center on Fridays from 10 until 11. And they also have an early learning splash time at the swimming pool, which happens on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that's a really cool partnership that they have going. And I also attended an arena board meeting. A very large expense, and they knew it was coming, but the refrigerator replacement and compressor system, it's been a little long in the tooth for a while, and it's nearing the end of its life, and it looks like it's going to be about a $550,000 expense. So they are looking, there's some grants that are potentially available through Hennepin County. They're looking at some fundraising options. They actually have done a very nice job of managing their money, so there is a decent amount of reserve, and they're checking out financing options. So I will keep you posted, but they were aware and planning for that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Ms. Borchers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have 2 items, well, actually 3. I just want to give a plug. So the first one, we're mostly going to be talking about with Jim about the budget changes, and we talked as finance and facilities about those changes in more detail. Jim will go over them in more high level here in the board, but we met today, but prior to that, Jim and Dr. Flesher and the principals have been meeting about these budget adjustments as well. And so it's been, all of them have been thoroughly discussed. We had some questions, but, and you may too, but it's very clear. A lot of it has to do with the timing of expenses and the timing of when funds come to us from, say, the federal government, for example, whereas we work on a 12-month schedule, the federal government might work on 18 months or longer. And so sometimes timing of things is what happened. Sometimes it's, one of the items was if dollars that were federally marked for COVID relief, for example, if certain school districts didn't spend all of them, that money goes from, so the federal government would give individual school districts money. If they don't spend it all within a certain amount of time, it goes to the state of Minnesota, who then redistributes it to all public schools amongst the state, because they want to keep the money here in Minnesota, which we appreciate. And so we had estimates on how much money that would be, but now we have concrete numbers. And so it's those sorts of thrilling, exciting things that we talked about at the finance meeting. And then I'll let Jim, most of the other stuff he can talk about construction costs, falling on the difference of one summer month over another is one of the reasons, like budget changes. And then the other 2 things I wanted to just mention was I passed the torch to Todd, who will give the foundation update. So I was at that board meeting. And then I just want to give a shout out to what you just talked about, sports, art, speech, and there were also, my kid participated in a music listening team. That their competition was on Friday, which is through NPR. And then there's also a science team that they went to the University of Wisconsin, River Falls, this weekend. And then competed against other schools. So I just want to give a shout out to all of the incredible people who make all of those amazing activities happen, because that's really a level of richness that our students will carry for their whole lives. So just kudos, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not have any updates for the past 2 weeks.
Mr. Madsen?
I do, and they are on my phone, so forgive me. All right, so the foundation updates, we attended that, and as she said, we passed the torch. Thank you for all the years of service, both on the board and as the liaison. So the foundation had a good year end with their donations. At the end of the year, they do a thank you call to all their donors, and so they reached out. It's not a solicitation for new donations. It's just an actual appreciation phone call, but it actually does yield, that appreciation yields further contributions. So they had a good year end. They have assigned or scheduled the gala or the bash for April 22nd. So more to come on that. And then lastly, they are looking for candidates for both the Promising Alumni Award and the Distinguished Alumni Award. Nominations must be received by March 1st. And there is a link on their website. So the Promising Alumni are those that graduated less than 15 years ago, and the Distinguished Alumni are those that have graduated over 15 years ago. So they are looking for those. The other, let's see, we've already mentioned facilities and finance. I second everything Wendy said on the MSBA. And then the last would be this morning, there was my first AMSD meeting. That was a virtual conference this morning. Not a whole lot from that other than they covered some of the what we would say is known positions of the governor's budget that will be released tomorrow. And really the talking points is that they're just focused on they're going to be taking some positions depending on the finalized language of the budget, but the big takeaway is that they're advocating for the state should be the funding source for some of these current proposals that could fall on the districts potentially. So a couple of examples would be compensatory education revenue is largely dependent on the number of students qualifying for free or reduced lunch. And so how does the free breakfast and lunch program impact compensatory budget? I don't think we would be drastically impacted by that, but it's something that they're still trying to figure out, iron the wrinkles out on that one. And the other is that they have approval to apply for unemployment when school is out for the summer. And that would be another one where they haven't really figured out, is that going to come out of a district's budget or is that going to come out of the state? So AMSD is advocating those would have a significant impact on the districts. That needs to be state funded. So those are a couple of the highlights from the AMSD. And we'll know more tomorrow. But I'm guessing the action committee will probably have comments tonight as well. And that's my report out.
Thank you, Mr. Madsen. I just have one brief report. While Ms. Borchers was attending the foundation meeting, I filled in for her at the Spartan Parent Association meeting. And what a busy group. They've got a lot going on. They had a really interesting discussion. One of the things they do with their dues is they ask teachers for projects that they would like funded, and they get proposals, and they were able to fund almost every one of the teacher proposals that they received. I think the only one that they turned down was a trip to Valley Fair. They apparently didn't have quite enough money for that. But again, they talked about, they're in the marketing business, and they talked about comparing their dues, which they ask every family to pay. They were comparing them to other schools and found out that their dues were a little low, and so they're thinking about increasing them. But they also talked about how COVID brought down the participation rate. It's currently about 40 to 45%, and it used to be higher. And so they're looking at ways on how they can increase parent participation in paying the dues to help fund their activities. And they spent a lot of time talking about the upcoming graduation reception and senior party, which again is a big secret. There's 3 people in the world apparently that know where that's going to be. but they're quite excited about planning for that. So it was not announced there, so I was not one of those three. But again, just a really great group of parent volunteers that are doing some good support stuff for our high school kids. Any other comments or questions? All right, moving on to our agenda, our first item of old business is the 2023-2024 school board meeting dates, and that's an action item. Dr. Flesher, would you like to walk us through that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have before you the 2023-24 school board meeting dates, as you can see, and the recommendation would be to, if you so approve.
And Ms. Borchers, you have looked through these, and
I haven't. I would make the motion to approve.
And I'm going to second that.
just for the rest of you in the audience, Sarah is really good at looking at calendars and dates and finding potential things that don't quite click. And so we really appreciate that she does that. All right, all in favor of adopting the school board meeting dates for 2023-2024, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the motion carries. Is there any other old business that we need to address tonight? All right, our first item of new business is the pay equity report. Dr. Flesher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The 2023 pay equity report is on the January 20, the board approval, or the board agenda for approval tonight. This is a compliance report that's submitted every 3 years by Orono Schools to the Minnesota Management and Budget, MMB, which operates under the Minnesota Department of Employee Relations. State law requires all public jurisdictions such as cities, counties, and school districts to eliminate any gender-based wage inequities in compensation and submit reports that demonstrate compliance to MMB. The pay equity report includes 5 different tests, and the district is again in compliance on all 5 areas. It may be important to note that pay equity is a method of monitoring and eliminating discrimination, particularly against women who may be paid less than men for jobs requiring comparable levels of expertise. Pay equity laws in Minnesota target only gender-based wage disparities, not all types of wage disparities. I thank Dr. Alger, our Executive Director of Human Resources, and his entire team for their excellent work. And asking the board to approve the pay equity report.
Do I have a motion to approve the report?
I'd move to approve it, and I also would like to say, as on the negotiations team, Dr. Alger and Mr. Westrom are both very diligent in making sure that as these things are happening real time and we're doing these contracts, they are aware of how that will impact. So it is not surprising to me that they passed, because it is something that they're always considering. So I move to approve.
You have a second.
I second that.
Any discussion? Thank you for that insight, Laura, thank you. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. All right. The next item is the 2022-2023 revised budget. Mr. Westrom.
Yes,
Dr.
good,
Flesher, I'm sorry, I don't want to
Nope, that's
step on
fine.
your toes.
Just say Mr. Westrom.
okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I just have to, first of all, congratulate you. I watched your board meeting last week or 2 weeks ago live. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, but I hear that things went just wonderfully, so I wanted to congratulate you. And then also, this evening, we have an item for board action, which is pretty much routine in nature. So I'll just, for the benefit of you and also for the benefit of the community as a large, the budget cycles in a school district actually run 3 years simultaneously. We've got our previous year, which the board approved the audit just 2 weeks ago. We have the current year, which is the current year operations. And then in December, you probably recall that you approved a property tax levy that will finance a portion of the 23-24 school year. So that would be approved prior to July 1st by state law. The budget that we're talking about this evening was approved last June, and it was based on a number of assumptions. It was actually based on the property tax levy that was approved in 2021. So as I mentioned, we kind of have rolling budgets that are going on, and so at this point, as a routine matter, we actually seek board approval to basically kind of shore up the budget or make it more accurate. So in June, we didn't, as Ms. Borchers so kindly described, we didn't know our entitlements. We also have a number of construction projects and other activities that occur over the summer months, June, July, and August. So we're not really sure how much we're gonna spend in June and how much we're gonna spend in July and August on construction projects. So all of those items have been analyzed by the business office, and you had the opportunity to meet Rachel McQuiston last week, or 2 weeks ago, and she did a wonderful job in assisting us with this. So what I have before you this evening is a budget revision that will reflect a number of refinements of the budget. And I'll just talk about a couple of the key messages. The October 1st enrollment actually is critical in the school district's operations in determining its revenues as well as determining its staffing. And as once again, as you know, we project a number of students that we think are gonna show up each September in June and build our budget off that. At the same point, our operating referendum is approved the previous December. And we also need to try to determine how many students will attend at that point. So as things start to become more accurate, we seek to update our budgets and report to the board. So enrollment's been updated. We also had a number of retirements last June, and we knew we needed to hire replacements for those retired teachers. And so we used an average salary and benefit in the budget, and now we actually have those people in place, and we're very fortunate that I believe almost all positions except for a psychologist have been filled in the district, so kudos to Dr. Alger and other staff, and we have the actual salary and benefit costs. As I mentioned with the finance committee, we also try to project our benefit costs. As you know, we do offer health insurance and dental insurance, but we don't know how many of our staff are gonna take family coverage or how many are gonna take single coverage, and so we use an average, and then on January 1st, after our open enrollment, we revise the budget to reflect the actual costs that we think will incur between now and June 30th. And then finally, we also looked at our, the only other item that seemed to require consideration is our utility costs. Our utilities, as you know, electricity, fuel for heating. And over the last couple of years, our costs have been a little bit higher than normal because we've been increasing the amount of fresh air in response to the recent pandemic. And so we wanted to update those costs. So as I mentioned to the Finance and Facility Committee, we tend to budget conservatively, in other words, kind of worst case scenario. So, but we do have 6 months under our belt, and so we're projecting the next 6 months and seeking about $50,000 of additional budget authority to cover those costs. As I also mentioned, I would hate to have to come to you in May and say, hey, can we increase the budget so that we can keep our utilities on? So, and then the other big item, and this is the biggest item, are those federal dollars. So we do receive federal entitlements, and during the last 3 years, as a result of the pandemic, some of those dollars have not been spent, and so they've been reallocated out to school districts, and we don't really determine or find out what our reallocation is until September. And so once we started to get an idea of what those reallocations were, we actually started to implement the programs, and now we're seeking board approval to kind of right-size those budgets. So overall, the federal appropriations have been finalized, and within the budget that you see here are $1.2 million worth of federal revenues. And these revenues are only earned if the dollars are spent. As Ms. Borgers mentioned, if we do not spend the dollars, they'll return to the state and be redistributed throughout the state to other districts. And we do have a plan for these dollars and are very diligent in making sure that we're being prudent with those financial resources. You'll also notice that our enrollment has been adjusted to 2,862 early childhood through 12th graders. These are students served in our buildings, but we also have additional students that we serve either through 287 or through a tuition program. So in case you're wondering why that number isn't closer to that 2,889 that we talked about. And then that's only, or I shouldn't say that's only, that's an increase from the previous year that you heard about at the audit 2 weeks ago. And our demand for the district, as we mentioned in our Facility and Finance Committee this afternoon, continues to be strong. So we're very thankful for that the Orono School District is very attractive. And currently our projections for next year, the 23-24 school year, actually are an increase of about 20 students. So, And then once again, as I mentioned, our estimates for average salary and benefit costs will be replaced with actual projected costs. And then finally, as Ms. Borchers has talked about, our building construction. You're probably aware that the Discovery Center had a major construction project going on. We anticipated that there'd be a couple $100,000 worth of costs associated with construction that had been completed during the month of June. Actually, it was such a great summer and we had a good head start that we completed about $600,000 worth of those projects. And so the budget reflects the fact that we incurred those dollars and we don't have those available anymore because we already spent them last year. So, and we've reflected the budget to reflect the expenditures of the remaining amount of dollars that are available to complete the contract. And at the same point, I can say this because I see all the change orders. We had very minimal change orders. The project was well over $1 million and the change orders were just a couple tens of thousands of dollars, which is, we usually put together a contingency, so I think we're coming in under budget for that, which is very favorable as well. So I included a couple documents in your board packet. The first is just the revised budget as a whole that you'll be asked to give consideration to approving. And then just for informational purposes, you'll see what you approved or what the board in place last June approved. And just want to indicate that we're in a favorable position. So with that, those are the end of my remarks. Mr. Bash, I think you would, I would ask you to have the board consider approving the two totals at the bottom, the total revenue and the total expenditures district-wide.
Do you need us to have that number in the motion?
I think because the motion simply says as presented, you could just say as presented.
So do I have a motion that we accept the 2022-2023 revised budget as presented?
I make that motion, and I just want to make a tag on, Mr. Westrom mentioned that during our finance meeting that the likelihood that we will have any other significant adjustments in June would be minimal. These are really the adjustments that we'll be seeing this year.
Do I have a second for the motion?
Second.
Thank you. So any questions or discussion now? Again, as Sarah mentioned earlier, we spent a good hour on this afternoon going into the detail and asking some really intelligent questions and some really not so intelligent questions. Really good answers. And again, I think we're sitting in a very good financial position for the year, and this revised budget reflects that.
I just want to make a comment as the new person. The juggling of multiple years, the different sources of revenue that you get, how they all act differently, and the fact that where we're trying to land, how you both project out the assumptions that you make, and then where you come in, it's very impressive. And I had an appreciation, but I have a significant appreciation is the more that we move forward. And so I just applaud you for the work that you do. It's not easy.
Well, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I would say that many of the finance directors in Minnesota are often in 3 years at the same time, so, but you're right, it is highly complex, and we are currently always in 3 years. But actually, that's a big part of the Orono tradition, is to not only be in the current year, but to always be looking ahead into the future. So thank you for those kind remarks, I appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions? All right, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much,
you very
Mr.
much.
Westrom. The next item on our agenda is the Orono Action Platform. Dr. Flesher, would you like to introduce this and our
Yes.
guests?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I invite Ms. Emily Bremer-Forbes to the table. Are you coming by yourself? Okay, all right, for presentation on the 2023 Orono Action Platform and for your consideration for approval. I want to thank the entire committee. I see many members here in the audience for their very hard work and advocacy on behalf of the school district and children with our legislators. And I turn it over to Ms. Bremer Forbes.
Hello, everybody. So I am alone at the table, but not, right? Because many of my compatriots are back here. And a couple were unable to attend. Actually, a number of them were not able to attend. But we all worked on this together with advice from some members, some of your colleagues, including Dr. Fleischer. And our legislative platform, one of the kind of two of the main, I don't know, maybe guideposts that we follow, we pay attention to AMSD and the research that they have put out and their platform. And we use that as a way to kind of guide us in addition to our past year's platforms and our knowledge of the legislature and how quickly or slowly it may move. And so what we've done is we've shortened our platform to 4 points this year. We had 5 last year. And we changed a little bit our first bullet, but these 4 points have been kind of in place for a while because they have been consistent issues that we have wanted to talk to our legislators about. We've made some traction, but it's still, we haven't made enough, right? So what we came up with then is this increasing the basic formula allowance by 5% per year for the next 2 years and then indexing to inflation thereafter. And I don't know if any of you saw the newspaper today, but the announcement of Waltz kind of coming out with something relatively similar, particularly in terms of trying to fund that and tying to inflation, which we think is really important. So the other piece that it has been difficult for us and for all districts is that special education cross-subsidy, which is we rely on basically taking money from other places, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. And so any movement that we can get on that would be helpful. And again, that's something that Governor Waltz has spoken about, and there has become, I think, over the last couple of years in the legislature, in the last 2 to 5 years, there's been more just discussion and recognition that this is an issue. So I feel kind of more hopeful about that than I have in the past. And then increasing the state aid to allow hiring additional staff to address our students' mental health needs has been something that we put on last year. I think that was the first time that we had done it, added it into our platform, and we feel like that is important to continue. As well as we really would hope that they would not put more unfunded mandates on your shoulders or the district's shoulders. We would appreciate having funding attached to more requirements should they come down. That doesn't always happen, and a lot of the unfunded mandates are good ideas, but it's hard to do all of them without the funding that you want or need. And so I put that as the platform for this year. I put that forward to you to ask for your approval or questions, concerns.
I would love to thank you and Amy for all your work on that. And this committee has grown exponentially this year. And thank you to everybody who took the time to help with this and to come here tonight. You know, the legislators just need to hear this from numerous sources, and we've got a lot of people who are advocating very strongly for this, so thank you.
Well, and you have new legislators this year that you are talking to. And so it's sort of a little bit of a fresh slate of a possibility. And, you know, like I don't know them all, but I appreciate you going across the aisle and talking to all of them and trying to help advance for our kids.
Yeah, I think we've had, it's been good to have a consistent group who goes. It's nice to bolster our members in terms of who will be able to talk to our legislators. We'll have, as you said, some new and old, and I think that we've had, because we also go to the legislator at the same time as the legislature, I'm having trouble with my enunciation here this evening. But because we go when AMSD is also going, there are a number of different school districts that we get to band with and talk to different people with different members at the same time.
Any other questions? This is great work. Thank you for doing this on behalf of the students in the district. That's really, just thank you.
You're welcome. It's our pleasure.
Mr. Chair, would you mind if I just mention the names
Please do.
of our, yes, we have Emily, who is a co-chair with Amy Allworth, Becky Knive, Dr. Leslie Locke, who's here tonight, Dr. Raina Shaw, who's also here, Timothy Ussett, also here, Maria Veach, and then we have two school board liaisons, Wendy Lunsgaard and Laura Wallander. Just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of this, I think, really mighty group.
Thank you, Dr. Fletcher.
So I would like to entertain a motion for us to adopt the Orono Action 2023 legislative platform.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, it passes.
Thanks,
Go,
everybody.
go forth and spread the word.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is, I think, just a great topic that I really enjoy listening to every year. It's the Orono High School Registration Guide and Report. And Dr. Fletcher, do you want to introduce Dr. Steiner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I invite Dr. Amy Steiner, Orono High School principal, to the table for presentation on the newest version of the Orono High School Registration Guide and Report. Dr. Steiner and her team have been focusing on the future, on expanding opportunities for our students in both blended and online, and we are very proud and grateful for their work. Thank you, Dr. Steiner.
Thank you, and thank you all for having me. I do have some exciting news for our work in the high school, so I'm excited to share that with you. I'll talk a little bit about our course registration guide and proposals for next year. I'll also give an update on last year's new courses and a little bit on our work as staff in the high school. I'm not sure. There we go, okay. So as always, our work is grounded in the Orono School's mission, and our work supports this. And as you'll see when I talk about some of the new courses, we're always looking at finding pathways for students, opening doors for students, and creating opportunities so that they can maximize their potential in life, post-secondary, in education, career, and in citizenship. So our work this year in our professional learning communities, or PLCs, has centered mainly around two main things: incorporating character counts, kind of bringing that back to the high school and bringing it back in our minds and our vocabulary, and kind of reinvigorating that for students and staff, and also creating a culture for learning and focusing on data. And how we're doing that is, I'll talk a little bit about the Academic Achievement Assessment Reflection Form. That's a little bit of a mouthful, so we just call it the ARF. And we share and analyze data in our PLCs. So character counts, we have character champions, who are staff members who were retrained this summer with Gary Smith from Character Counts, and they help lead this along with a character team of staff members from the high school. So they have worked in classrooms they started out at the beginning of the year, starting bringing some staff development to our teachers, just to review and again reinvigorate that for them, and also to try to get it consistent in our classrooms, to develop a consistent vocabulary and language around the character counts so that students are hearing that in all of their classrooms. We've also done some work in Spartan Hour. At the beginning of the year, we did a couple months where we once weekly did a specific pillar of character and highlighted it and gave an opportunity for students to reflect. Some self-reflection, some work with peers, discussion, things like that, where they could talk about the pillars. And then again, through that Academic Achievement Assessment Reflection Form, the ARF. I'll talk a little bit about how we do that. So the ARF is really a student reflection piece, And it helps students reflect on their learning and the process of their learning and kind of develop those metacognitive skills that we want them to have. And we've asked our PLCs to incorporate this reflection form after a minimum of one assessment per semester. Some PLCs are doing it after each major assessment. And part of the ARF has some character counts, the student success skills in it as well. And I'll show an example of that. So in the reflection piece, it is helping students talk about and think about their preparation for assessments, what sort of testing strategies they used, what sort of homework strategies they used, and it also helps them think about the bigger picture of their learning, including things like attendance, how often were they in class or how often did they miss, and their daily work, and how that really impacts their learning and how they do on those assessments and on their daily work. And then some PLCs have also added an error analysis where they tie that into their learning targets. So after an assessment, students can look at their errors and see what learning targets were impacted and again, look at those preparation strategies and how they did on that. All right, so here's an example of the character counts on the ARF where they have listed some of the different success skills from character counts and then ask students to check off the learning strategies that they used. And this is just one part of it. So did students complete all of the in-class assignments? Did they pay attention during class? Did they put their phone away? What kind of study skills did they use? Did they have a group or peer study guide? Did they use some of the online resources that the teacher asked? Things like that. So once again, just having students really think about what did I do and how did that impact my learning, or what did I not do, and moving forward, really having them take that ownership of their learning. All right, so looking back at this current year's course offerings and new courses that we offered, I want to talk a little bit about some that a year ago we proposed, and I want to talk about our Senior Spartan experience, our Spanish online class, and then our pre-AP English 1 class. So our Senior Spartan experience, it's actually 2 years old, but just kind of a review of the goals. The goal of this is to really give students an immersive experience in an area that they're interested in, an area that they're passionate about. It's for seniors, and they would do this immersive experience at the end of their senior year after throughout the year gaining some skills. And we really wanted them to build a bridge between their work in the high school and, again, what they're going to be doing post-secondary, whether it's college or a career, and really help them continue to be engaged in their learning at the high school level, while also pursuing their passions and their interests. So this began 2 years ago in the spring of 2021. We had 4 students. Last year we had 15, and this year we have 30. So we are definitely growing it slowly but surely. And we know that as more students participate in this and have a good experience, that they will share that with friends, neighbors, siblings, and it will continue to grow because we think it's a really great opportunity for students. Some of the areas that students have expressed interest in to work on this spring: architecture, business, cybersecurity is always a big one. Therapy, sports marketing, forensics, law enforcement, these are just some of them. And this year already, some of the activities that they've participated in, they've had a career panel, which included some breakout sessions with different professional areas. They've met monthly as a team, they've had guest speakers, and they've done individual planning meetings. And then they will, of course, continue to work on it throughout the year. They'll be working on connecting with a mentor and an experience that's going on right now as they start to connect, and then they will do that immersive experience. Okay, so our next new course that we offered this current year in the fall was Spanish 3 online. And the goals of offering that online was to really provide students we also wanted to retain students in a course where we frequently lose students to Northern Star Online or other online options. We know that students will have a more rigorous and positive experience with our Orono teachers, and so we wanted that to be an option. And we also are looking at launching the Orono Online option for students. We know that students going to college will likely have some sort of online experience, either by choice or by requirement. And so we wanted to give them that opportunity to have an experience while still in high school, in a little more supportive environment.
Can I just put a little background? The reason Spanish 3 online is not Spanish 1 or Spanish 2 is because that was not a bottleneck, but like a very difficult course for kids who wanted to continue their Spanish education to do, given if they're in band or if they're if they're kind of trying to do 4 years of a couple different things, Spanish being one of them. And so this was a real like breaking point for some kids. And so I love that that you're offering it again next year and that so many students took you up on it, because that means they get to continue Spanish,
Yep.
which is fantastic.
Right, and also all the other electives that they want to do. And it can fit anywhere in their schedule. They're not locked into a certain hour. It's really great. And we know that students who, oftentimes Spanish 3 is sort of an end point for a lot of students. Any language at a level 3 is, just because of college requirements and things like that. But we also know that our students in the online option will be able to come back to Spanish 4 if they choose in our brick and mortar program. And we've not really felt that confident with some of the other online options in their preparation. So, yep, we're full and we're gonna offer it again next year.
Dr. Steiner, was there a full section?
Yep,
Okay,
a full
that's what
section.
and what I've heard at least is very positive reviews such far, or
Yep.
thus far.
Yes, and the instructor is Paul Ivers. He's done a great job, and he frequently has been surveying students throughout just to kind of gauge their interest, and it's been really positive. And he has, about in October, he got some software really specific to online language acquisition, and it allows students to do some speaking, which there's a little bit of difficulty with that with online, so it's been really been a game changer, and it's really been helpful for students and for him. He's able to give immediate feedback to them and assess them on their language abilities, so it's been great.
Dr. Steiner, so just to clarify, when they're doing the online courses, they then have in their schedule a study hall, is that correct?
Correct.
So they're doing that at their own pace? They're not necessarily doing it during that study hall hour?
Correct.
They could,
They could, yep.
yeah, but they
Yep.
don't necessarily have to. So there's the
Right.
flexibility, okay.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, and then one of the other things that we offered this year was pre-AP English 1, which took the place of our English 9 curriculum. And the goal for that was to really provide more on-ramps for students to get into AP. And we had hoped that it would prepare them better for AP. We found that we don't think that it did. So we're proposing going back to our English 1, which we had previous this year. We felt like it better prepared students, it offered more rigor, and at the same time as offering more rigor, it also provided teachers opportunities to support students much more effectively in differentiation, accommodations, and just providing different opportunities for support. And really, the market difference was really in reading, writing, and speaking, which is pretty much everything, very important. So we are proposing that they go back. The instructors are fully on board, and we think that's the best thing for our students.
To be honest, we suggested to the College Board that they consider our curriculum.
Yeah.
And I just have to, this is so amazing. I appreciate that you were bringing up what didn't work, because when we're trying new things, sometimes that happens. And so I love that your flexibility is really appreciated.
Thank you.
And I think what's important to note that you noted at our curriculum meeting is those students, this will not be a wash class for them, that the teachers know what the students need to know, so they can fill in where necessary and supplement to the best of their ability so that they can take this as a foundation but build to the rigor that is expected at Orono.
Yeah, and they've already been making those changes kind of back to the curriculum with some of their units and some of that work, so thank you for that. And I really want to give a shout out to our English 9 team. It's an excellent group of instructors and they've worked very hard. They worked all summer. We didn't actually have access to the curriculum until June because you had to sign up for it and agree to do it and everything before you could get access. And so they spent a lot of time this summer really trying to make it work and digging in deep into it and then now filling in with some of that supplemental stuff. So they've done a wonderful job and it's really refreshing to know that what they had was better than what the College Board has. So we're really happy for that. All right, so moving on to the coming year, the 23-24 school year. We have some new course proposals, and most of them are in language arts. We're proposing a writing workshop, which is really for students who enjoy writing and want to dig in deeper into their writing abilities. It will focus mainly on one large piece of writing for students that they'll work on the entire semester. It might be a novel or a play or a book of poems, really with the aim that they will eventually publish. And they will also be tutoring in the Media Center, offering writing help to other students. So it will really be a win-win. And this will be an elective for 11th and 12th graders. And then next we have reading for high school, which will be targeted to 9th and 10th graders, and that's really an intervention course. And it will help students who are struggling readers build those literacy skills, comprehension, critical thinking, and other skills. And it will also be an elective that will run parallel to their regular English course. And so the instructor in that course will help them work on some of that English work that they're doing while they're doing it in their English class, but then also building some of those literacy skills. And that will be a referral course, so counselors would refer students to that through our student assistant team, which is our typical intervention referral course. And that this is part of our achievement and integration work, so that will be funding that course. And then next we have literature and film. In the past, we've had a film studies course. This one is going to be really focused more on works of writing that are turned into films, whether it's a book or a play, and kind of doing an in-depth comparative analysis and looking at various genres and some discussion around that. And that also is an elective for 11th and 12th graders. And then the online creative writing, that's really basically similar to what we have right now in our creative writing class. We have all of our creative writing classes are now blended. That came to all of you a few years ago. We started out with just one section, and then it was just so popular that now in this current year, all of our sections are blended. And we'll also create an online class because they feel like it just really would lend itself well to that. It's a lot of independent work, a lot of writing conferences, and I think that's going to be popular with students. And then finally, we have an offering called Leadership in Action. That's going to be taken as either an English credit or a social studies credit for 11th and 12th graders, elective credit. Currently, we have a leadership class. It's called Leadership Perspectives, and it really mainly just deals with leadership styles and learning about leadership. And this one is going to be, the key word really is the in action. So students will, as part of this class, in addition to learning about leadership styles and different techniques and group dynamics, they'll also work on a service project throughout the semester, and they will plan it, design it, and then implement it over the course of the semester. It could be a project in our building, in our district, or in their community, and it will really be up to the student to find something that they're interested in, they're passionate about, that they want to do to give back. We also think that'll be really popular.
Dr. Steiner, you mentioned this a little bit at the SPA parents meeting last week. As you offer all these courses, how do you fit this in? How do you find classrooms and teachers to make all of this happen? And what happens if somebody doesn't want to sign up for these courses?
Right. So our schedule is always based on student registration. So the student registration drives what we offer. So I'll get to, in the end, I'll talk a little bit about some classes that didn't run this year, for instance, that we proposed in the past, that we just didn't have enough interest, and so it kind of all evens out. We lost a couple electives in language arts a year ago, so they felt like they were short on some electives, and so that this will help bolster it. If we don't get enough students, it won't run. If we get a lot of students and, you know, it may pull it from another elective, then that one wouldn't run. So it just kind of all, you know, it just works itself out, and it's really important that we kind of keep things fresh and keep things engaging for students and keep them really focused on what they want to do and offer electives that they can choose. All right, and then we have a new course proposal for math. It is AP Pre-Calculus. That is, once again, just about providing options for students and pathways for students. So we are confident that it's going to provide an on-ramp to students who maybe are out of the honors or AP track in that curriculum. It will provide an opportunity for them if they, for instance, want to go to AP Calc. This is the class right before it. Right now, we have functions in trig, honors functions in trig, and then regular standard pre-calc. And then this, for next year, we're proposing that the students who are in functions and trig right now, who would typically take pre-calc next year, that they would take the AP pre-calc. And speaking with the instructors and looking at College Board and looking at the learning targets, we feel like it's a really good fit and it's doable for our students. They have gone over some of the stuff in functions and trig and then add in some of the stuff from pre-calc, regular pre-calc, and we think that it will be a good fit for them. And then we'll kind of reevaluate after this year, once we have a teacher who's done the training and really dug into it and worked with students on it. We'll see how that, if it still follows that they would have functions and trig as prereq. We also think that it's a good opportunity for students who maybe haven't taken an AP course, and maybe pre-calc is their end math course in high school, that this is an opportunity for them to be really successful in an AP class. There's an exam at the end of the course, just like every other AP class. So. Excited about that. And then for FIED, we are going to be offering FIED 1, which is sort of our standard FIED. It's typically taken in 9th grade. We will be offering that online in addition to the standard one. It is a course that we do have some students take online and at other online providers. Once again, we want them to stay with us and take an online class. We think it will be much more rigorous, impactful, and engaging. And one thing that we learned from Spanish that I forgot to mention was all of those students in Spanish Online are also taking courses at the high school. So they can stop by and see the teacher in Spartan Hour before or after school, or one of his open hours if they have study hall. So it's really nice to have that connection versus another online provider where you may never see the instructor and certainly couldn't have a face-to-face in person with them. So we're proposing that, and students can take it anytime before they graduate, but like I said, it's typically taken as freshmen. And then our final new course proposals are in social studies. We have a senior seminar course, The History Through Film. We had in the past had a senior seminar course of econ, and that's typically kind of a rotating thing that just changes different seminar topics based on the teachers and the students and what we're kind of hearing from them. This course will look at events or eras in history, and they'll study that, and then they'll look at how it's displayed through film and look at how the times when the film was created, how that may impact the viewing of the historical event, and it will talk also about media literacy, looking at audience and advertising and point of view and other sort of typical media courses for that. And then also the leadership in action, which I talked about with the language arts. So that's also a social studies elective. And that course can be taken as a junior or senior. And the hope is that we will get students who either are currently leading a group or are maybe juniors and looking to lead it in the future. Things like sports, like maybe they're captains in the sports, maybe they lead a club, they're in drama, any other leadership position that they want to build their skills in. All right, and so then, back to Mr. Bash's question about what if students don't sign up. So we did offer some courses last year that did not run because we didn't have enough student interest. We're gonna offer them again, just to see if things have changed. And one of those is AP European History. We offered it a year ago. And then this year, we just didn't have interest. We have had some students and families ask for it, so I'm hopeful that it will run next year. We'll see. And then a couple online classes that we offered. And I think last year, you know, students were still getting used to blended, and we hadn't had an online. Now we have a really successful online, and we have a lot of students doing blended, so we're hopeful that maybe the online AP World History or the online AP Human Geography will interest students, and we'll be able to offer it. All right, so that is all I have for you. Are there any questions for me?
Thank you very much. Questions for Dr. Steiner?
Yeah, I did. I didn't see, is the Spartan experience in the course catalog?
No, it's not really a course that they sign up for, it's
Okay.
just an experience. So there is a group, it's kind of like a club that meets monthly. So they're just, I'd say it's more the level of a club, because it's not a class they take every day in their schedule.
Okay. And then do you have limits on the career interests that they go after?
Nope.
Okay.
It's anything that they're interested in. The really sticking point would be if they can find someone to mentor them, to have that experience. And so our advisors have done a really good job of sending things out to the community to say, hey, you know, if you're a member of the community or even nearby and would like to be a mentor, let us know.
So we support trying to find their
Yep,
place.
absolutely. And so as students, if there's something that we don't have, so we kind of have a pool of mentors, and if there's something that we don't have, our advisors will help them find it. Oftentimes, students, the reason why they pick an area is because maybe they know someone who's done it, or they have some sort of experience. So they might have someone in mind, but our advisors can help out with that.
Okay, yeah, because it was a broad list that you
Yeah.
presented up there.
It's very proud.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Which
And
is great.
The reason I was struck by it is we heard a lot in the community over the summer and in the fall about wanting to, I was actually just speaking about this, wanting to explore other options that are not really traditional to what people think about the direction that Orono students go in. And so I'm really pleased that this is something that's picking up traction and that you're promoting, because I think that there is a demand or a request in the community to give our students options to find pathways that may not fit in the traditional view of what a lot of the community thinks is the Orono pathway for students. So this is great.
It's
I
a great
applaud you for this.
opportunity, yeah. Thank you.
It gives a lot of autonomy to the students.
Yes, absolutely. We're all about, kind of going back to the beginning, all about engaging them and expanding their opportunities so they can feel passionate and own their learning and find that connection between what we're doing here and beyond here, whether it's a career or they go the traditional college route. I think to see that connection will really help them.
Yeah, I love it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Dr. Steiner, I just had a quick one. Are there courses that are offered routinely, sort of every other year, like AP Music Theory? Are there a few that are like that, where they're not every year, but they're every other year? And is it a set thing, or is that just gauging enrollment, or?
It's kind of both. So the only ones that we really kind of do every other year is the AP Music Theory, and then there's a couple art classes, and I think it's drawing and painting, drawing and painting are opposite. And that's kind of up to what the instructors are hearing. I know AP Music Theory, we offered 2 years in a row just because they were hearing that kids really wanted it. So, it's kind of what we think kids want and need, and we try to meet that, so.
I just ask because, having 2 kids in high school, one of the experiences we've had with the older one, who's a senior now, a lot of these kids look at sort of their 4-year plan as they're registering, so they're trying to figure out how these will all fall, especially if they're in fine arts or other electives that carry through our language. So they're looking for how it's going to fall together, and knowing what year some of those classes might be offered is helpful if they know they want to take it. And I think, at least for us, for that first one, we didn't realize it wasn't an every year, so then the next year it wasn't there. And so I don't know if there's any way to communicate that to parents, but to just, put something in there that in the catalog that indicates that this isn't offered every year, or put it in there and say it not offered this year, but offered next year, so that students have that ability to look forward and plan. Yeah.
It's a great idea. And our counselors really work intentionally with students to do the four-year plan. I mean, they talk to them as freshmen and plan out your 4 years. We know that things change, but you're right, it does help students to look ahead and plan.
Any more questions? Dr. Steiner, I just want to say that your presentation and this catalog, I mean, this is something that as a community, we should be very proud of. The rigor, the comprehensiveness, this is why people want to go to Orono schools, is what you and your staff have put together. Obviously, with the help of starting in kindergarten, you don't do it by yourself.
Absolutely.
But this is just really impressive, and want to thank you on behalf of the board and the staff at the high school for doing this. This is something we should all be very proud of.
Thank you.
And I would say I mean, Orono's relatively small, and the depth of classes, I mean, we didn't have this when I was a kid at all. And I think, we maybe can't compete with some of our larger school districts around in terms of the number of courses that we can, but I think this is pretty impressive for the size school that we are.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
love how responsive you and your staff and teachers are about really trying to gauge what students want. Given that you have standards, you have to make sure that they get through, but like creative ways of getting them to into really enjoying those subjects. I just think that that's really fantastic. So thank you for being so responsive.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to entertain a motion that we adopt the Orono High School Registration Guide and the associated report.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. This is
Thank
great.
you.
All right, is there any other new business that we need to address tonight? All right, if there is none, our next regular meeting will be held Monday, February 13th at 7 p.m. here in this room. Just as a reminder, at 6 o'clock, an hour before that, we will host a dinner with the high school student senate to hear about what they are doing and suggestions that they have for us. So that'll be at 6 o'clock, an hour prior to the meeting. I'd like to get a motion to adjourn to a workshop session for the purpose of a presentation on community engagement.
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.